Breaking news here on CNN, a major development in the Middle East. Hamas says the political leader of the organization the U.S. calls a terror group has been killed in Tehran.
One of the top leaders in Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, has just been eliminated by the IDF, and the world right now is in absolute tumult. And I wanted to bring on a very special guest, Sima Jacobson, who is the founder of the Meaningful Life Center, to help us spread some clarity on what is going on in the world, because obviously this is what everybody's talking about. It seems like a very dangerous, very scary time right now. Rabbi Jacobson, please help clarify for us what's going on out there.
So firstly, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to share a few words. I do agree. These are very volatile and challenging times. But I want to say a few things. First of all, we, the Jewish people, have been here for thousands of years, and we have dealt with every possible enemy, from the Egyptians to the Assyrians to the Babylonians to the Greeks to the Persians to the Romans. The list goes on. And we're still here, and they are all gone. So I think it's important to contextualize and understand that the Jewish people are a chosen people, an eternal people, and if we hold strong to our values and to our God-given values, we don't have to be worried or concerned at all. So at the same time, we're not turning our blind eye to the challenges. It's just that we have to go with fortitude and courage. And actually, the world needs us more than ever, because the world does not have direction and guidance. That's the first thing that jumps out at you. You know, you would think a world leader would get up now and say, hey, guys, we have a crisis, a moral crisis. Our allies in the Middle East, called Israel, a free country, is under attack. And we have to do something about it. So clearly we don't have such leadership. So ultimately, it's up to Israel to do what it has to do. I think that even though this may sound a little controversial, in a certain way, it's a blessing in disguise what's happening. I'll tell you why. There's a statement in the book of Daniel that says that the greatest blessing is when you see clarity. The fact of the matter is, Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south, and the Houthis in Yemen, have been plotting and planning to destroy Israel. And now they're showing their true colors that the whole world can see. So I'd rather see it than not see it. And frankly, the attack on the Druze soccer field, tragically killing 12 children, and of course attacks on October 7th, and the incessant bombings of northern Israel by Hezbollah is exposed what their intentions are. We heard what Turkey said, and I think the world has to wake up, starting with Israel. We have a real enemy. They've declared war. There's a declaration of war. And there's a certain way you deal with enemies that declare war on you. You don't negotiate with them. You cut off the serpent at the head. So I don't have a quick military strategy how you resolve it, but I think we have to wake up to the realities and stop peddling and trying to downplay it all. And the violence has been perpetrated. To stop calling Israel to behave in a way that is with restraint. What restraint? You're talking about Nazis attacking Israel. What would the United States do if the equivalent had happened? So these are my initial thoughts on the matter. So confident we will prevail, but we have to be strong, and we cannot become part of patsies and wimps. And let's be honest, our enemies are seeing the weakness of the United States right now. Without real leadership, with politics and polarization, a media that's as corrupt as it gets, and it's, God forbid, a perfect time for them to do their cruel and their evil behavior, because they don't think anyone's going to stand up to them. So that the killing of their top leader and the leader of the commander in Beirut, to me, is a sign that they see there's real serious business here. You want to fight. This is a real war. And only strength speaks. Negotiations and diplomacy are not going to do much.
So there's three things that come to mind. Number one is, it seems like, Israel has gone down this route of taking out a leader, and it doesn't really seem to affect them. That's number one. It's almost like in Egypt when the frogs, the plague of the frogs, they would smash a frog, they would kill it, and then 1,000 frogs would come, pile out of that one frog. It seems like no matter how many of these leaders they take out, there's 1,000 waiting to take that mantle. So that's number one. Number two, I was trolling Twitter today, and it looks like what the world narrative is accepting is, look how murderous Israel is. Look how, blood-hungry Israel is. Can you imagine Israel, they're provoking a war. And then number three is you have this little tiny country, Israel, who unfortunately was backed by great allies, whether it was in America or in Europe, whatever it is. They have seem to have taken a sort of a back seat when it comes to Israel, at least at the moment, and at least publicly. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And you have this little tiny country, Israel, that's fighting a war on so many fronts. There's only 7 million people in Israel, out of which half are men, out of which half are of fighting age, out of which half don't fight. So it seems like, help me make sense of all of this.
Okay. Well, let me share with you this. I was a young boy of 14 years old in 1971. 1971 was literally 4 years after the Six-Day War. So I visited Israel with my family. I was there all summer. The Arab world, the Muslim world, hated Jews then just as much as they hate them today. But you know what? They were terrified of attacking any Jew, let alone a soldier. I remember as a child, I traveled everywhere. I went to Hebron, I went to East Jerusalem, I went to Shechem, in Arab taxis and Arab buses, at day, at night. No one even told me, be careful, wrong area. Why? Because they knew that they had lost the war in 1967, and losers who understand that they're losers understood they can't do anything. Unfortunately, they were empowered. So I agree with you. You can take out this leader and that leader, but what you really want to get across to them is, we are not going to tolerate any more of this. You're going to be answered in the most severe way. They have fear in their hearts. We know during the Six-Day War, there were thousands of Arab shoes left on the border of Golan because they saw they were losing, and they ran. So if fear is in their hearts, that is a big deterrent. So I see the taking out of their leaders, not so much whether they'll find another replacement. It has to be part of a general strategy that enough is enough. We're no longer going to accept. No, we're not. Now it's like if Hamas returns the hostages, we're all going to say a big thank you. We'll give them a Nobel Peace Prize for returning the hostages. That was the most criminal thing. They have little babies there as hostages. Where's the outcry? So I think it's about strength that needs to be demonstrated. And yes, the enemy, the Nazis and the Japanese, unconditionally surrendered. And what happened? As a result, today, they're allies with the United States, with Israel. They were rebuilt. They need to understand this was not acceptable, period. They have to be unconditional surrender is the only expectation, and then we'll be friends if you accept the conditions that we will impose upon you.
Let me challenge this for a moment, if I may, okay? By the way, I'm on your side.
Go for it. Challenge is excellent.
I like to put, the other, let's say, perspective. So there are those who say that you can't, end violence with more violence. It's a, famous ideology. Again, my Twitter trolling this morning, which I don't suggest anybody do it because it's a toxic wasteland, Twitter, X, and now the Iranians are saying that they're going to respond with 10 times force and even more force and blah, 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 meaning there is a group, an ideology, which makes sense that more violence leads to more violence. So that's number one. And then number two is, I'm curious, the biblical source or the Torah source Meaning, let's not try to approach this from, a secular position. What does Torah have to say, or what would the Bible say? What would Moses say is the correct shin, and where do we see that in biblical sources?
Well, let me begin with your first question, then I'll go to the second question, because they're interconnected. Let's just take World War II as a case study. The United States did not want to enter the war. Maybe their argument was violence will just bring more violence. They stayed away until Pearl Harbor. And then it became clear the only way to fight the Axis, which is the Germans and the Japanese, was with violence. The only way World War II ended was with violence. It was not with negotiations. It was by bombing them in every possible way. Look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The atom bombs, how much devastation that created. But that was the only way, because you were dealing with sworn enemies that simply would not surrender. So I agree with you entirely. Judaism does not like blood, does not like war. Even King David, the holy man, King David, God said, you cannot build my holy temple because you have blood on your hands. Even though the blood was justified. But blood is blood. We want peace. Is the biggest blessing in Judaism is shalom, is peace. There's one problem. If your enemy attacks you, it's simply called self-defense. We don't call it violence. We're protecting the innocent.
It's called the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, not the IAF, the Israel Aggressive Force.
Right. So did we ask for October 7th? Did we ask for the Six-Day War? Did we ask for the Yom Kippur War? Did we ask for the Independence War, for the Intifadas? Did we ask for children being bombed in a soccer field who weren't even Jewish? So they have already unleashed violence. What do you do now? Do you show the other cheek? And you say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to fight violence with violence. But they have set a fire to your house. I want to know any person, all those people on X or Twitter in this toxic environment, if it was your house and your neighbor attacked you and raped your children and burned others alive, would you say, I can't do violence? Violence just creates more violence. It's not violence. It's self-defense of innocent people. That's why we have the famous expression, show compassion to the violent, you'll ultimately be violent to the compassionate. That's how it is. So they have declared war. Iran calls for the destruction of Israel daily. Hezbollah the same. Hamas the same. It's in their constitution. It's a declaration of war. We know every country, when war is declared against you, for you to say, you know what, I'm going to ignore that because I don't like violence, is not only stupid, that itself is the most violent thing you can do.
So why does the world expect Israel to do that? It seems like Israel is the only country on planet Earth that is held to that standard.
Well, let me answer that question after I say. So the Torah, which demands and wants peace, Kol HaTorah, it says, the entire Torah was given to bring peace to the world, says exactly that. You don't go to wars. You never do offensive wars. You go only defense. You have no... As a matter of fact, even when you're fighting with an enemy, you have to always give them a way out, etc. So to answer your question, well, some will say it's simply blatant anti-Semitism. Why did Jews were accused of eating Christian matzahs with a Christian blood? Why were all kinds of myths and blood libels spread about Jews, not about others, about Christians or about Muslims? Some say it's just blatant anti-Semitism. I think it also includes the fact that Muslim fundamentalism, even though I will not say all Muslims are terrorists, but they're sympathetic to Muslim fundamentalist thinking, which says that even one sliver of land that belongs to the Jews is sacrilegious and goes against what Allah wants Muhammad and the Muslim faith control Israel and the entire world. That's why they build mosques on all our holy sites and so on. They feel Islam has replaced Christianity and Judaism. So I think there's a deep religious, spiritual philosophy that's distorted and frankly obscene in many ways. And that's part of it. And they've done good propaganda. And you have a liberal West that's busy watching Olympics and sports and busy with all kinds of other materialistic nonsense. So, and they haven't fought a war. This country, and I include myself, we live in a country that we take our blessings for granted. It's very easy to sell all kinds of what we call lokshin to sell us all kinds of propaganda, as if Israel's a colonialism, apartheid. I mean, frankly, all kinds of Madison Avenue lingo to incite. Now, I really believe that the silent majority of the United States are pro-Israel, especially the Christian right, but they're silent. The loud voices are the liberal ones that are coming out, and they are making moral equivalence between what happened October 7th and self-defense that's happening now. And it is a travesty. And frankly, it's one of the reasons I'm on this program with you. We need to counter that. There's a major media war being fought, information war, of a completely false narrative. It's infuriating, but that's what's going on, even right now. I mean, didn't the world designate Hamas as a terrorist organization? So it should be celebrating that the leader of a terrorist organization was taken down. Why is there even any condemnation?
The news stations I see are rebranding him as the Hamas political representative.
Freedom fighter.
I know, even better than a freedom fighter, a political representative.
Yeah.
So, Rabbi, we only have a couple minutes in this program left. I want to ask you the two following questions.
I hope you don't mind me. You touched a nerve, and I just...
I love it. I love it. And we're going to get back on the show. So my two closing questions are like this. Number one, what should world Jewry be thinking right now? Because there's definitely an element of pride that, hey, look at our army, look what we were able to achieve, but there's also a real element of fear. So that's question number one. And then question number two is, what should we do as, a Jewish man sitting in Panama, a Jewish rabbi sitting in New York, or somebody sitting in Brazil, or London, or Florida, or wherever he or she might find themselves? What should we be thinking? And what should we be doing in order that we should be able to help in our own way?
So look, in Judaism, we always talk about healthy cognitive thinking, healthy emotional attitudes, and healthy behavior. The cognitive, emotional, and behavioral aspects of our lives. So first, let's start with our minds. We need to get total clarity. If you don't have clarity, read up, find educated people, find out how the concept Palestinian is a complete myth, the right of Israel to be there. Listen to Netanyahu's speech in Congress, where he talks about Israel being a country that's there for thousands of years. Just be informed. You must be informed, because there's so many voices that are going to challenge you. You need to be able to respond. And more importantly, even if you don't respond, you need to know in your own heart that we are in the right, that we have that moral clarity, that the Jewish people represent the highest values. We don't want to hurt anyone. We cry even when our enemies die. But at the same time, bring me to the second point, emotionally, connect to God, connect to faith and trust. At the end of the day, like we say every year, Passover Seder, in every generation, they come to try to destroy us, but you, God, are there for us. Connect to God through prayer, through Torah study, through mitzvahs, especially the mitzvahs that are connected to protection. Check the mezuzahs on your door, male, boys, and adults, and men over bar mitzvah, putting on tefillin, which has particular feature of protection. Love and unity. When Jews are united, nothing can hurt us. Especially through charity and things that just capture our unity and our connection with each other. And finally, absolutely not. Last. Absolutely. Just you should have a conversation with some of the military, the IDF. Look at their attitude. They have a certain exuberance, a certain positivity, and they're in danger all the time. They're literally sacrificing their lives. But they feel that they're connected to Am Yisrael, and they feel that the entire Jewish nation, not just now, of all generations, and that God is with them. It's very difficult to tell someone not to be nervous and not to tremble. The only solution is connect to something that holds you strong. Family, love, mitzvot. And remember that at the end of the day, God protects the Jewish people and God protects Israel. And I think holding on to that is extremely necessary in times like this. And finally, I want to say is that you need to do everything possible to fight this war. Some people need to enlist and actually fight on the front lines or in other areas of the military. But we also have a spiritual war at work, which means that we are all partners, wherever you are, whether you're in Panama, as you mentioned, or in New York, or in Canada, or in Australia, or in England, or in France, wherever you are, there's also a spiritual war. The Jews always had a spiritual part to it, which is prayer, study Torah. Wake up a little extra early in the morning, like a soldier, and with a sense of urgency, and study some extra Torah with your children. Say an extra psalm, an extra prayer. We have to feel that we're part of this. It's not just their battle, meaning for the Israelis, it's all of us are in it because we're all part of one nation.
Rabbi, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your perspective, and may we merit to see Mashiach very soon, where we won't have all these issues, and let him fight the wars for us.
Amen. Thank you.